Hey, listeners. I am so excited to share these interviews with Ginny Yurich of 1000 Hours Outside. A quick note, I had some issues with my mic during recording, so my audio is not quite the quality it is on our regular lesson episodes. But Ginny's audio is wonderful, and that's what matters because she has some great things to share with you. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with our guest, Ginny Yurich.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go.
Are you ready to explore God's wild and wonderful world? Welcome to the Nat Theo podcast. I'm your host, Erin Lynham. I'm a certified master naturalist, Bible teacher, and author, and I am so excited to dive into God's written word and his created world with you.
We are all looking for adventure.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us for a special interview episode with someone I am so excited to introduce you to. Today's conversation is for you kids, and tomorrow's interview will be more for your parents and caregivers. On both days, we are talking with Ginny Yurich, founder of 1000 Hours Outside. Ginny recently wrote a book that I loved that's called Until the Streetlights Come On. And I just love the title for one because it brings up so many memories from my childhood. I grew up spending so much time outside in the fields and in the neighborhood and down at the pond by our house. And we knew that when the streetlights came on, that's when it was time to come home or at least go check in before we headed back to a neighbor's house for games of capture the flag in the dark. So I was so drawn to this title in this book. Ginny, thank you for joining us on Nat Theo. Can you please tell the kids a little bit about yourself, your family, and why you started 1000 Hours Outside?
Sure, I'm happy to be here. Hey kids, how you doing? I hope you got a lot of time to play today. It's a lot of fun for I loved that when I was a kid. I grew up playing a lot. We didn't have a ton of homework and there wasn't as much screen time because there wasn't as much on. And so I went to school and came home, and a lot of times the afternoons were for playing. And we just did simple things like we played in the neighborhood, and we played at this like little baseball field, and I rode my bike around the block a lot and really, really loved that. I also liked inside things too, like playing the piano, and I really liked to read. And so I had a childhood like that, and childhood kind of used to look like that for a lot of people. It was very screen low. My parents let us watch 3 TV shows a day, but there wasn't that much on, and a lot of times it was called reruns. That means that it had already come on before and you'd already seen it, and I always thought that was kind of boring. You kind of like to watch new things. So there just wasn't as many screens, and so there was a lot of kids to play with because nobody was tied up doing all these different things. And then I became a mom, and when I became a mom, there was a lot of screens. There was screens on iPads, and there's YouTube, and on YouTube, there's always something new. There's no reruns on YouTube. It's always new content, and there is pretty much this infinite, I've heard someone say, an infinite river of content that you could consume, like either on a video game, or you could do that on your phone or your tablet or on the television, because there's Disney Plus and there's Netflix and there's all of these different things that you can watch whenever you want to watch it in real time. And so that has changed things quite a bit because it just makes it trickier to find people to play with. And one of the things that I found when I was a young mom is that it's really hard to be a mom. It's really fun to be a mom, but kids can be a lot of work, and all of a sudden you've got to make sure that you have the meals, and you have to make sure that you have all of these things done. So I was pretty tired and a little bit worn out. Maybe your mom or your caregiver is like that sometimes. As a mom, you kind of get kind of tired, and your kids want to play with you and they want to do stuff. And so I was really in a spot where I was struggling to be this fun mom and to keep all of the things going that needed to go on. And what I found was that when we went outside, we could all be together, and all the kids would play, and they would play with each other, and we would come with friends. And what I learned over time is that when we play outside, adults, parents, teachers, kids, that it helps us develop. So what that means is that it helps your brain to work even faster. When you do things that are really cool outside, like the types of things that you would say, look at me, mom, look at me, dad, or, look at me, grandma. You would say to them, look at me. And you step up on the stump and you jump off and you're flying through the air and you land on the ground. Those types of things are so fun, but they're also really good for you. They're good for your brain to grow. They're good for you to gain coordination. They're even good for your bones inside. Every time you jump off of something and you land on the ground, that is helping your skeleton to be stronger. And all of these things that happen when we play outside, we're learning how to get along with our friends and we're learning how to work through disagreements. And what if your friend wants to be the princess, but you want to be the princess? Or what if you're playing house and everybody wants to be the baby? You have to work all of those things out and you have to figure out who gets to use the really cool stick. And someone found the coolest one, but there's always different ones out there. So there's a lot to work out. So it's helping you learn how to get along with other people. And you're just having fun and you're spending time with your family, with your friends, with your parents, and you're building these memories together. So what I learned as a mom when I was real tired and kind of struggling through getting through each day to day, I learned that when we go outside together as a family, that this is giving all sorts of benefits that last for a very long time and also gives us time to spend together and be together and build relationships.
I love that. And that is so true. My boys are all involved in jujitsu. They're training in jujitsu, and my daughter's in ballet. And we're always telling them, hey, your time outside when we're hiking, this is making you stronger. This is helping with those skills. So I would just say to the kids listening, if you're in a sport or a hobby you really enjoy, just like Jenny's saying, all that time outside is developing your body and your mind and your spirit and just making you stronger in every area of life. Speaking of benefits of being outside, Ginny, in your book in chapter 5, you talk a lot about sunshine. Can you share with the kids the benefits of, like, why is it so good to just let the sun shine on us?
We own this thing. It's called a light meter, and it almost looks like a Ghostbusters tool. It's got this orange curly thing on it, and anyway, you go outside and you can measure how bright it is. Basically, it's pretty neat. And what I learned was that we measure light like we would measure how many candles are there. So we probably put a candle on a birthday cake. If you got one, if you got two, if you got 40, then it's a lot brighter. And so that's the word lux. It's spelled Lux. And we can measure brightness in terms of lux. So inside, if you get out your little light meter, and there can even be apps on your phone, your parents might be able to do this with you. When you walk around your home and you measure, and even if it's a bright room that's got really big windows, the light will come in at 500 lux. So like if there were 500 candles, which would kind of probably be dangerous, it would take a long time to light 500 candles. Or maybe it's 800 candles or it's 1,000 candles. And that's how we measure brightness. Well, when you go outside, even if it's cloudy, and this is a really important part, you might live in an area of the country like we do. We live in Michigan where it's cloudy a lot of the year. Or you might live in a place like California, or there's the sunny states, right? Like Florida or different parts of the world where it's really sunny when you go outside. But it doesn't matter. When you go outside at all, the amount of light, the lux, whether it's cloudy or sunny, it jumps very high. You're into the thousands. So maybe it's 6,000 even on a cloudy day. Maybe it's 40,000 on a sunny day or 60,000. But the point is that we need a certain amount of lux, a certain amount of brightness to wake up our brains and to say, hey, it's a new day. And what that does is it helps your body. Your body has rhythms that depend on the dark nights and the bright days. That's how humans are. And what happens is when we stay inside all the day, or we're on screens a lot, because that's light too, but that's a different type of light. It's a blue light. And even the light outside is meant to guide our bodies, the different colors. Light changes throughout the day. So that's a guide for our body. So when we get outside, not only are we getting the light that's guiding our bodies through the different colors, in the morning it's real bright and at night it gets darker gradually. We're also resetting our body rhythms that are inside of us that depend on bright days and dark nights. So if you can walk to school, or if you're homeschooled, when you wake up, you go on a walk with your family. Try and get outside before noon, before lunchtime, so that your body can reset those rhythms and you get a little bit of sun in your eyes. It goes right to your brain, and your brain it releases this chemical inside of your body called serotonin. And that's one of those chemicals that helps you feel really good. So if you wake up and you're kind of crabby and you're having a hard time waking up, then you just go outside and let that sunlight go into your eye, right to your brain. And it helps your body release that serotonin so that you feel better. And your siblings, if you've got siblings at home, they're going to feel better. And your mom or your dad, they're going to feel better. And everyone's going to feel better. And it's a great way to start the day.
That is such a good encouragement to get out even on cloudy days. We live in Colorado and we have so much sunshine, overwhelming amount of sunshine. But actually today is really overcast because we have rain and even some snow moving in. And I keep looking outside like I need to go outside. I need to get some of that lux. Ginny, that sounds like a fun experiment. Where did you get your light meter to measure light?
You can get those anywhere. I mean, they have them obviously on Amazon, but it's a tool that a photographer uses as well. So if there's like a, photography store or camera store, you might be able to find it there too. And then, like I said, I do think that there's apps on your phone too that just you could probably use to measure the amount of light. And it's interesting to notice.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be a fun experiment, kind of like a game to see how much lux we can get in a day.
Hmm.
Ginny, my kids have experienced times when they have asked friends or neighbor kids to come outside and play, but the kids didn't want to come out. How can our listeners encourage their friends and their neighbors to come out and play when a lot of kids are used to staying indoors these days?
That's really hard. This is a hard time to be a kid, and our kids have experienced the same thing. There's just not as many people to play with. And when we were kids, there wasn't as much screen time, so no one had anything to do, and everyone was kind of bored. So they would come find each other to find something to do. I would say to ask your parents, could they maybe have a conversation with some of the other parents in the neighborhood that maybe on Thursday afternoons, everyone plays outside, or on Tuesdays, we go on bike rides with the neighborhood kids or something like that. And that's an idea to start with. I think part of the problem is that this is a collective society problem that sometimes can't be solved with just one person. And those types of problems are exciting too, because then you team up with others to figure it out. Now, I would say that if a kid looked outside and there were 7 or 8 kids out there playing, they're going to be enticed to get out there because they don't want to miss out what's going on. You want to go join in. And so the more that you can do that, I know this man, his name is Mike Lanza, and he was trying to make his neighborhood a playborhood. That's what he called it. And so he would do a lot of playing in the front yard so that people would see. And his kids would be out there and they put a lot of their toys out in the front yard, like their sandbox. And in some places you may not be allowed to do that. But if you are, you could play in the front yard instead of the backyard. Like bring your chalk and make sure that everyone sees you out there playing so that they might come and join in. But I do think it might be a conversation that you have with your parents that they can have with the other neighbors to say, this is important and we're going to try and schedule it in. And once you do it a couple times, I think people get hooked.
Yeah, every people get excited. People want community and kids want to go out and play. So I just love that you can encourage our listeners to just go out and play, and that's naturally going to draw other kids out. Ginny, in chapter 8, you introduced a idea that I love. You gave a fun, easy, and practical way to enjoy time in nature. You talk about keeping a calendar of firsts. Can you tell the kids what that is, what it looks like, and how they can create and keep a calendar of firsts?
I found out about this idea from my friend Micah, and she has this company called Juniper Grove Journals, and they sew these
I love
beautiful
her
journals.
journals. They're so beautiful.
Right. Yes, and you can have all these different inserts inside of her journals. Like you might have, maybe your mom would have one for meal planning, but as a kid, you might have one that has the calendar of firsts, for instance. There's a lot of different ones that the kids can do. And what that is that every year you're paying attention to the first time something happens. So, for example, we live in Michigan, and in Michigan, there's cold winters and warm summers, and it's been a spring that's been unusually warm. So, in February, we saw a butterfly, which we would never see a butterfly in February. But that would be something that you would keep track of. Like you just really quick, you could draw a picture, which would be super fun, or you just write it down on this date, February, 22nd, first butterfly. And then you're paying attention to the first. When did the robins come back? When did you see? And you could learn some different kinds of flowers. So in the spring, the crocus, the daffodil, there's snow. There's ones about snow. I can't remember what they're called. Snowdrops? I don't know. It might be that. there's different kinds of flowers, and there's this rhythm to it. There's this beautiful rhythm to life. And then you can, if you do it for a full year, then you can compare year after year. So we pay attention to, like, when's the first time that we saw a mosquito? When's the first time that you see a bumblebee? When did the first flower bloom that you planted in your garden? When did you see your first cucumber? And then as the seasons change, when did you see your first red leaf? If the leaves change in the fall, when was the first snowfall? And it's one of those practices that helps you to pay attention and to appreciate more that things are changing in the world around you.
I just love that idea. And it reminds me of an almanac. And in history, almanacs were used to record dates of certain things in nature, the rising and the setting of the sun each day, and the phases of the moon and the weather patterns. And farmers use them to know when to plant what. And I've kept a similar almanac for the birds that come into our yard. Our family loves bird watching. And it was so fun because recently we noticed the great blue herons coming back to the lake that we live by. And they're these crazy big birds with stilt legs and crazy hairdos. And I thought it was way too early for them to come back. But then I looked at my records from last year and realized, no, it was the same week. They're right on time. And I had another
Oh,
example just today. I'm sitting in my office and I'm looking out the window to our backyard, and there's this aspen tree with a big cavity, a hole in it. And last year, a pair of starlings was nesting there. And just today, they came back. And I don't know if it's the same pair, but
oh,
it
it
was so
probably
sweet to
is
see
though.
about the same time, right? It's you get to notice these rhythms in nature. And I just love that idea, and that this is something listeners can do right now, especially as we're going
Yes.
into spring, that they can take a notebook outside and write or draw pictures of everything they see and then go back to it a year from now and see if it's those same things
Yeah.
popping up.
Yeah, and it can even include the funnier things, like maybe the first time you saw someone driving with their windows down. To me, that's always
Yeah.
a big thing. It's a cold, 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 and then all of a sudden, everyone's got their windows down. Or
Mhm.
the first time that you feel your allergies come. I mean, I keep
Yeah.
track of that, right? It's like, oh, I'm sniffling. Is this allergies? And then you look at your calendar. No, probably not yet. And then when are they
Yeah.
gone? If you've got seasonal allergies, you can pay attention to that and look forward to
So
the time
fun.
when they go away. So there's a lot of different things, and when we notice things, it makes life definitely feel more full.
Yes, absolutely. Ginny, I love that idea. And I'm so excited for you to come back on tomorrow and share some of these ideas with parents and caregivers. But before we go, can you share with the kids one of your favorite memories as a child in nature?
Yes, I can. I loved to go with our church. They did it just a couple years. They did a father-daughter canoe trip. And I still to this day love to be on the water, the kayak or canoe, and the water just moves along. And sometimes you can hop out and swim. You stop at different little places where you have lunch or something like that. But when I was a kid, it just happened a couple times where our church ran these trips that were the dads and the daughters, and it was a canoe trip. And we did them in October, which is kind of bizarre to me looking back because in Michigan by October it's pretty cold.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
is.
we would yeah, it wasn't in the summer that we did these canoe trips. So we would go, and I have pictures where I would be in a winter coat, and we would get in the canoe and we would have snacks, and you would really hope that in October that your canoe did not flip because sometimes that happens. And so it's fun in the summer, but not when it's October and it's cold. But to be real cold and to still be able though to go get in the water, and it's reframed my thoughts on what can we do when. There's even a place by us that I learned we like to kayak down this river, but it's open year round. So how beautiful would it be to go off season where maybe it's a little less crowded and maybe there's snow falling or something like
Mhm.
that. And I like the idea of doing atypical things in or typical things in the atypical season.
That is so good. And I love that. I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin, and we spent so much time on the water. And here in Colorado, there's a lot less water. We are in the desert, but we do live on a little lake. And getting out on the water is one of our favorite things. And I love that encouragement because I usually think of it as a summer activity. In fact, ours is a reservoir, so they drain the water out, which is so weird to me coming from the Midwest. But this year
Wow.
was strange. They filled up the lake early. So we are recording this in early March, and the lake is already full. And usually it's frozen at this time, but it's open. And now I'm thinking I might need to go down there with the kayak and get on the water and hope it doesn't flip.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
because it's
so
really
good.
fun and it's not
Yeah.
crowded. So yeah, I have really good memories of being with my dad. And I'm pretty sure that those were just overnight trips. They weren't anything that was that's it. I mean, it was just that. It was a one-day canoe down the river. Maybe we stayed overnight, and those are really some strong memories and fun. You can make a lot of memories in a little bit of time when you're outside.
Oh, that's a good point to end on. Thank you, Ginny. Thank you for being with us and with the kids today. We're excited to have you back tomorrow with the caregivers.
Thanks for having me. Bye, kids.
Oh, we are